The creation and appreciation of beauty results in an improved understanding of life. This concept resonates in both John Keats's collection of poetry and Jane Campion's 2009 film Bright Star that follows Keats's love affair with Fanny Brawne. The two composers both harness nature's beauty to effectively demonstrate the dying process, Keats in his poem To Autumn and Campion in her portrayal of Fanny losing Keats. Keats's collection of poetry and Campion's film both also articulate how attitudes and knowledge can be shared through the formation and analysis of art. Understanding nature's ever-changing beauty enables an individual to better comprehend the dying process. This is evident in John Keats's poem To Autumn. While writing this poem in late 1819, Keats was aware of his imminent death from tuberculosis and was trying to come to terms with dying. For this reason, To Autumn portrays inevitable death as a natural process by encapsulating the progression of the autumn season as a metaphor for the human life cycle. The first stanza presents the beginning of autumn as a representation of birth. The visual imagery of trees that bend with apples and fruit with ripeness to the core illustrates the abundance and growth of early autumn. The second stanza describes the harvesting section of autumn as a representation of adulthood. The alliteration in winnowing wind and the metaphor of being drowsed with the fume of poppies depicts the slow and subdued nature of these intermediate parts of life and autumn. The end of autumn represents dying in the third stanza of this poem. The sensory and visual imagery of full-grown lambs' loud bleat from hilly bourne suggests that the lambs are soon to be slaughtered, highlighting the death that occurs at the conclusion of autumn. Keats provides insight into the human life cycle by applying the natural progression of the season in this poem. In her film Bright Star, Jane Campion also demonstrates how the beauty of nature can represent and explain loss. Inevitable death was not a concern for Campion like it was for Keats when he composed his poem To Autumn. Consequently, in Bright Star, nature more strongly represents the end of the relationship between Keats and Fanny Brawne, as this is the focus of the film. A metaphoric connection between butterflies and their relationship is established when Fanny writes to Keats, "I've begun a butterfly farm in my bedroom in honour of us." A later scene begins with Fanny wanting to end her life because of her diminishing relationship with Keats, and ends with a close-up shot of a dead butterfly. This symbolises the approaching death of their romance. The seasons and weather are also used to represent the changing status of Fanny and Keats's relationship. Scenes where their relationship is flourishing are preceded by beautiful shots of nature combined with diegetic sounds of spring and summer. In contrast, Keats's development of tuberculosis, which ultimately ends their relationship, is foreshadowed by a darkly lit shot of pouring rain. In the final scene, in which Fanny is mourning Keats, her face is the salient image which highlights Fanny's visible anguish over the death of her lover. The background of dead trees and the dim lighting connects her grief to the season of winter, much like how death was represented by the oncoming winter in To Autumn. The audience's understanding of Fanny's lost relationship with Keats is enhanced by the connection established between the progression of nature and their love affair. An individual can both improve and express their understanding of life by creating and appreciating art. In Bright Star, Fanny is a talented seamstress whose attitudes towards life are reflected in her artistic creations. For example, when Keats's brother dies, Fanny offers her condolences with an embroidered pillowcase instead of with words. She is described as having sewed it all night long. Fanny's mood is often reflected in her costuming. Her dresses are elaborate and colourful when she is happy, and contrastingly simple when she is heartbroken or sad. She defends her passion by telling her critic, Mr. Brown, "My stitching has more merit and admirers than your two scribblings put together." The film focuses on Fanny's creative outlet of sewing because it was directed by a feminist woman at a time when fashion had become a respected art form. Keats, however, wrote his collection of poetry at a time when sewing was considered work, not art like poetry and pottery. His poem Ode on a Grecian Urn outlines an urn painted with images of lives frozen forever and communicates art's ability to bring about revelations about life. The art that is the focus of this poem encourages observers to question their understanding of life, which is portrayed by the anaphora of what and the successive rhetorical questions in the second half of the first stanza. The speaker's concluding statement of the poem, "Beauty is truth, truth beauty," argues that beauty and truth are achieved simultaneously. Therefore, in creating art, an individual is sharing their truth to be appreciated and understood by others. Depicting the progression of nature's beauty is shown to provide insight into both the human life cycle and the end of a relationship. A creator's understanding of life is expressed in their art and consequently shared with appreciators of their creation. Despite the different contexts of Campion's film Bright Star and Keats's collection of poetry, they share the common idea that an improved understanding of life results from producing and comprehending beauty. Thank you for listening.